Just to confirm, we are now live streaming, Councillor Cumbers, and it is 6:30.
Thank you, Natasha. Welcome to this meeting of the Scrutiny Committee. I'm Councillor Pat Cumbers and I chair the committee. I confirm that the following members of the committee are present and participating in this meeting. That's Councillors Rob Bindloss, Ronan Brown, Robert Child, Jean Douglas, Chris Evans, Chris Fisher, Elaine Holmes and Jacob Wilkinson. We also have the following councillors in attendance. Do we have any members in attendance?
Yes, Councillor Cumbers, we've got Councillor Posnett and Councillor Chandler.
Oh, thank you very much, and welcome to those fellow councillors. There'll be no portfolio holder presentations at this meeting. Feedback from the items considered at tonight's meeting would be provided to the relevant portfolio holders. And we have the following Melton Borough Council officers in attendance. Director for Growth and Regeneration, Pranali Parikh. Director for Housing and Communities, Andrew Cotton. Leisure, Culture and People Manager, Aisha Rahman. Case Management Lead, Laura Swift. And welcome to them all too. And of course we have officers from the Democratic Services team led by Mrs. Natasha Taylor. We have no external participants in attendance. This meeting is being held in public and we welcome those members of the public who have joined us. Any member participating by remote link who declares an interest in any item of business in terms which requires them to leave the room must ensure that they cannot be seen or heard during the agenda item. This shall be confirmed by Democratic Services, and that member of staff will also confirm to the remote member when they may rejoin the meeting. Should any aspect of the conference link fail during this meeting, I will call a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes to determine whether the link can quickly be re-established. If it cannot be re-established, the meeting will be adjourned to a later date. In the event of link failure for individual members, the remote members will be deemed to have left the meeting at the point of failure. And if the link cannot be re-established before the end of the meeting, then the presumption will be that the meeting should continue to deal with the item providing that the meeting remains quorate. Should the meeting no longer be quorate, the meeting shall be adjourned and any remaining items of business will be deferred. If the individual members' link is successfully re-established, then the remote members will be deemed to have returned at the point of re-establishment. I would ask members to indicate their wish to speak by raising their hand using the raise hand tool on Zoom. I will then invite each member in turn to make their contribution to the debate. Before proceeding to any vote, I will ensure that all members and officers have no further comments by confirming with the technical host of the webinar that no hands are raised. I will ask each member to indicate when asked whether they are voting for, against, or abstaining. This will be recorded by the Democratic Services Officer, who will confirm the outcome of the vote. Any member who has been absent from the debate on a particular item due to link failure must abstain from the vote on that item. Now we open the meeting proper, and apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies? We have Councillor Smith, I think.
Correct.
Yeah, right. And the rest of us are here, aren't we? Yeah, that's good. Then we've got the minutes of the meeting of Scrutiny held on 26th of January 2021. Of course, that was the budget meeting. And I might just say here that at Cabinet meeting the other day, I was asked to thank members of this committee for all the stuff that we do generally. You know, our work for the council, but in particular the feedback, the budget feedback that we gave to the cabinet, which helped them to come to decisions. Right. So are there any problems with the minutes? Anybody? No. No. So can we just go to the vote then, please, Natasha?
Councillor Cumbers.
Is this for my vote?
Yes. Did you,
Oh.
you want me to go through members? Is that okay? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not usually first. Yeah.
Oh, it's the way my list is. But if
right.
is that okay?
Yeah. 4.
Thank you. Councillor Bindloss.
4.
Councillor Brown.
4.
Councillor Child.
4.
Councillor Douglas.
4.
Councillor Evans.
4.
Councillor Fisher.
4.
Councillor Holmes. Councillor Holmes.
I wasn't able to be there, was I? So I can't vote.
Thank you. And Councillor Wilkinson.
4.
So that's 8 in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you. So those minutes are carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? I don't need to read this out, do I, Natasha? A member with a personal interest must declare.
No, Councillor Cumbers, you don't need to read that. And there are no members indicating with their hands raised.
Lovely, thank you. Right, now we go on to the scrutiny stuff. Agenda item 4, review of the scrutiny work plan. That's 2020 to 2021, and the cabinet forward plan. And thanks to I find it helpful that we get the printed copies now of the forward plan as well as the work plan. And of course, this work plan, it outlines the areas of work during the year. And of course, we're coming towards the end of this year. Since the last time this was reviewed, there have been some updates to the work plan and the dates for specific items. And I'm drawing members' attention to the changes. What was that? Sorry. To the changes in the timetable of the bid, task and finish group review. Yeah, we basically, you'll have known because I emailed you all that it had to be changed because the date of the ballot has had to be deferred. And of course, the cabinet forward plan shows key decisions which are due to be made by cabinet over the next 3 months. Now, any comments are there regarding the work plan or the cabinet forward plan? Any hands up, are there, Natasha?
Councillor Evans.
Oh, thank you, Chris.
Hello there, Chair. I think I put an email to you which was requesting an additional item for the forward plan, which is regards, of course, everything that's hitting the headlines at the moment, Lake Terrace and the ransom strip thereof. I've requested via you, I've given you the list of reasons that we set up a task and finish group to interview Melton and Leicestershire officers to elucidate the exact facts of who is basically, I'm putting this in English rather than you've got the wording, Chair, of who is correct in their assumptions of the sale of this land. There are 2 key points. One is why were Leicestershire County Council, but they allege they were never involved or informed of the sale of this land. And the second point is, obviously, I'm sure you have seen the headlines. Is it correct that Melton Borough Council, chief exec and officers misinformed or misled members with their statement? And were we actually getting, as is, I believe, law, best value for the land that we sold? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for the email. I can see that you and other members are clearly concerned about those allegations.
Very much so, Chair,
Yeah.
because
Allegations.
obviously, as I've explained, I spoke to Natasha about this. My concern is, let's be blunt, the leader of Leicestershire County Council has made allegations which are very serious. He's basically said, and I quote, not saying, that our officers are incompetent and that they have misled members on a key area, which is obviously a sale. The implication is that the sale that we've reached with the actual planning applicant is incorrect, is completely undervalued, and it should have been much more. And we did not inform Leicestershire, who are part owners. I don't know exactly the details, but they are part owners of this ransom strip that is necessary for the development to go ahead. Without Leicestershire's consent or sale of the land, nothing can happen. Okay, I think that sums it up really. I went through your key points also, Chair, as you saw, and it clearly ticks most, if not all of them, being obviously, especially in the next few years, this is a key partner. And just like with the bid inquiry that we're pushing forward, it's important to establish the key facts here of why this has gone so badly wrong. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chris. And yeah, my first thoughts about this is that there could well be a matter for adding it to the work plan. You know, serious allegations, you know, they really are serious. There's sorts of allegations I've never heard before made about.
Correct. Yeah, that was my concern, Chair. This is, you know, I don't wish to involve too much, but the replies we've had from our leadership are not actually countering the exact allegations, which is incompetence, and you can't get, in my opinion, much more rude than that. And the fact that officers have misled members, which is obviously also a very serious charge.
Yes, certainly misleading is deadly serious. Incompetence, I think we can all accuse each other of incompetence. That's a sort of a daily sort of, that's run of the mill sort of politics. But I'm afraid, Chris, I've not yet had sufficient time to look at this. These are serious allegations. And I believe that, as you would know, the work plan and what's in the work plan belongs to all of us, all scrutiny members. We all contribute, but in the end, it's down to the vice chair and myself, you know, what we actually add. There are, as I said, serious allegations. We have no idea whether they're true or not. Allegations being made, that anybody can make allegations. But I do think it's serious. I think it could possibly end up on our work plan. But I don't think we have enough information here. We don't have really sort of any evidence. I think most of you know me.
To be fair, Chair, that's the problem, and that's the reason for the task and finish group to actually gather the evidence, because we've waited for our leader to give us evidence. He hasn't given it, really. We haven't got the report from the surveyor. We haven't got anything. We're waiting for LCC to give us full measures. I'm well aware, I'm told, that the leader of LCC is more than happy to appear before a scrutiny team to give him the information that is requested.
Yeah.
So we already have one party who are willing to do it. Resource-wise, Chair, as I pointed out to you, this is probably only 3 or 4 people taking 2 meetings, probably, because that's what it will probably take to gather the evidence and form an opinion.
But right at this moment,
therefore isn't a huge amount of effort.
Let me say something. Right at this moment, we're here to consider whether or not it should go on the work plan. That's what we're here to discuss. I think there could well be some sort of investigation. Maybe something's gone awry. Maybe people have made mistakes. We don't know. If something hasn't been done properly, of course, it could well mean then that it will end up on our work plan. But of course, there are other ways. If other things have not been done correctly, it could well be more appropriate for audit and standards to be looking at it. So we're not the only body or part of the council which could be investigating this. I've not had time to give it consideration, and I'm sure Rob hasn't either, because it wasn't many minutes before this meeting started that I emailed Rob when I first read it for myself.
Well,
I think,
Chair, I'd like to hear what other members
will you let me
feel.
finish?
Obviously, this is democratic.
Rob, will you, sorry, Chris, will you please let me finish?
Yep, sure.
I didn't interrupt you.
No, that's true.
Yeah. So I think, because it is serious, I think that Rob and I will have to go away and give it a lot of thought. I'm really pleased the way you've presented this. You've obviously given a lot of thought, and you've you've checked with the regulations, and what you've done is fine. What we haven't got at the moment is a sort of a scrap of evidence. All we have are some allegations, but I absolutely promise you that what we will do is we'll look at it absolutely thoroughly. Rob and I will. But when we have got some evidence, when we've got some information, we will send it to you, Chris, and to all the other committee members. And we'll have to give some thought if something has gone wrong, that who would deal with it, whether it should be scrutiny, whether it would be audit. But I think most of you know me enough to know how seriously I take sort of misleading. You know, I think misleading, well, we know it contravenes the officer's code of conduct, misleading, and I presume that applies to senior officers as well as anybody else. And we can't, none of us can work properly if we don't receive sort of proper information. But mistakes are made too, so that's got to be established. And of course the county council, they too make mistakes, and the fact that make allegations doesn't make them true. You know, so there's a lot of work here, and it could well end up on the work plan. At the moment, we've got no space, but if it does need to go on the work plan, then I think we're going to have to find space, because it will be that serious. You know, it really would be, but it needs Chris and I, Robert and I, to go away and take on board all that you've said. You know, the allegations, plus the reasons you think that should be on the work plan. I think you've done some good work here, which you should be congratulated on. And in a way, it's the sort of thing that I like to see as chair coming to me, you know, that we should be looking at. That's fine. Didn't have much notice, but then of course that's not surprising, because it's very recent. But I really do congratulate you, Chris, on this work, you know, and I think these allegations are so serious that we might well have to find room on our work plan. But at the moment, I cannot see that there's the evidence to support that. But that's something that needs to be looking at. And I know Rob takes these things as seriously as I do. And we will certainly, I promise you, nothing will be hidden that we can find out. I expect other members have got comments to make.
Councillor Cumbers, yes, we've got Councillor Holmes, Councillor Brown and Councillor Child.
Right, so can we have Elaine first then?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I don't like to see these things happen. And so I actually talked to the Chief Officer of Leicestershire County Council to ask him, no, I didn't know. I'd seen what it said on the County Council and what the leader of the County Council had said. But the Chief Officer of the county, I think, was pretty surprised, because this has been going on for 2 years with the county, so I understand. So I'm just a little bit mesmerised about it, quite honestly. I thought normally councils work together. I thought that was the best way to do it. And I still think that. And I would welcome a task group or whatever it might be. I would welcome that, because of course we have the public listening to this. We have reports in the Leicester Mercury. We have reports in the Melton Times. And I just think that we need to give that credence to the general public, because we are only the people who are elected, and we must be absolutely, completely right for the members of the public, for all the members of the borough. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much for that, Elaine. I know how important this is to you as well, you know, and if it needs looking into, it will certainly be looked into. Thank you for that. I don't want us to get into too much detail right now. Of course, there is a ongoing commercial discussions as well at the moment, but I can assure you that Rob and I will be very thorough in how we look into it. Oh, so now Councillor Brown, Ronan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I had a conversation yesterday with the leader of Melton Borough Council, Councillor Ocean, and I raised my concerns about the very serious allegations that's been made by Leicestershire County Council, but also, if those allegations are wrong, they need to be countered in the strongest terms with the strongest evidence from Melton Borough Council. However, I said at the moment I'd want some reassurance on a number of questions, and Councillor Orson said, by all means, Ronan, ask those questions, etc. And if they aren't answered, by all means, push forward for a task group, etc. Now, if we are going down the road, I think the evidence is there. If we look at the County Council report, paragraph 15, 31, 32 and 33 make some quite clear points that need counselling, etc. And if those points are correct, it doesn't put this authority in a good light. However, stating that, Councillor Orson has given me the assurance that Melton's done nothing wrong. It's above board, and they're considering possible action against Leicestershire County Council, which is great. However, if we are wrong, I would like an assurance from the officers tonight that Melton's position is completely watertight and there is no risk posed from Leicestershire County Council towards Melton Borough Council in this matter. And if I can be given that assurance, I would say we can defer it. But if we can't get that assurance and say that we'll not be sitting here with legal matters around our neck, I think we need to move with the greatest speed possible. That's my points, Chair. Thank you.
I don't know that we've got a Natasha, are you able to answer that?
Councillor Cummins, I think that what we said was that it would be difficult to get into the debate of this at this moment in time. So I think you've given your commitment, haven't you, to take it away. That might be one of the questions that you want to ask, and that might, you know, expedite the way that you deal with it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And of course, we're still talking about ifs. Oh, Pranali would like to say something.
Yes, if I can clarify a few points which are raised in this discussion right now. So first and foremost thing, there is a whole list of allegations, but one thing I want the Scrutiny Committee to note is that the land concerned, which was part of the Cabinet report, it is totally and 100% in Borough Council's ownership. It does have adjacent ownership with County Council, but the land we are dealing with is definitely in our ownership. The Cabinet report did make note of the land registry numbers, and that is correct as part of the land registry searches, and that confirms that part of the evidence. The second part, in terms of the discussions with County Council, the planning application was submitted in November 2017, and the actually reserved matters application was granted only recently in November 2020. So over that last 3 years, as you all are aware, through planning applications, there has been numerous discussions that has taken place with the highways and transport teams. And I have categorically got emails that I can provide as evidence that very clearly discusses the ownership between Borough Council, the unregistered land that we got registered on our name, which was done in full legal understanding of both councils, as well as discussions with the highways and transport team about the tripartite agreement that will need to take place between Borough Council, County Council, and the developers. Now, if anybody has looked at the cabinet report, there are 3 times that matter is pressed in the cabinet report. Our cabinet report that was approved on the 28th January by our cabinet. Paragraph 4.3, paragraph 10.2, and the risk assessment, paragraph 15.5. All 3 mention a tripartite agreement of section 38 as well as section 278 agreement between Borough Council, County Council, as well as the developers. So there has been engagement going on. There is mentioned very clearly in our report. But we can, if the scrutiny committee decides to look into this more, we can definitely look at more in detail. And if councillors present very specific questions, me and my team are very happy to look into the details of those answers as well. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just say that clearly we're not making a decision tonight to put it on the work plan. That's not happening. Rob and I don't have enough information, you know, but I promise you we'll go a lot. We'll be looking at the stuff, and Pranali's mentioned some. I promise you we'll look at it absolutely thoroughly, but we're not going to change that. Rob and I just do not have enough information. We've not given it enough time nor consideration, you know, though I've said several times, on the face of it, it looks as if it could be a matter for the for our work plan, but at the moment we don't know, and we will not be making that decision tonight. Or not, but I'm happy to hear more comments, but there'll be plenty of time afterwards. We hope, certainly we hope, that members will be giving us their thoughts, their opinions, their suggestions, all sorts of things. We want to be listening to all of you, you know, so anything you say tonight, it could well be noted, but it's not going to change the position tonight. It's not going on the work plan tonight. So I'm sorry to be so sort of firm, because I wouldn't want you to continue talking as though Rob and I could change our minds, because I'm sure we won't. We want this to be done absolutely thoroughly and properly, and that's how it must be. I think Councillor Child wants to have a word.
Thank you, Chair. I think it is imperative from where I'm sitting that this matter is added to the work plan and is reviewed by a task and finish group, as Chris has said. One of my concerns, and I have a number similar to earlier speakers, is the ransom strip, and I'm not clear on that, whether it includes phases 1 and 2 of the development. And then there's also the issue of overage. And I know we're not here to get the answers tonight, but has this been addressed in heads of terms with the NCHA? Those sort of questions, they need answering, and it's imperative that 3 or 4 people are on this task group and can get some answers. I think that's all I'm prepared to say at the moment, but I'll leave it with you, Chair, and the Vice Chair to make the decision.
Yeah, thanks for that, Bob. Thanks very much. Yeah, as I say, we don't know. Things do go awry. We've had plenty of things go awry in the council, and I think when things do go wrong, the thing is to admit it, you know, and get it sorted and make sure it doesn't happen again. But I don't know. We don't know. We don't know enough. What we don't want it to sort of end up on the work plan uninformed and ending up as a shambles. But if it needs to go on the work plan, we need it to be done, you know, sort of to start off and so that we can make a thorough job of it. But who can tell? But what I do know, and I hope you can all trust Rob and me, you know, you can trust our integrity, and we won't be party to hiding anything. We just, that's not our way, you know. So, but certainly the intention is that we'll go away and we'll give a thorough looking at, and if stuff does come to light that maybe something not quite right, as I say, if for example it's to do with incorrect policies, then that might be an incorrect ways of doing things. That might be a scrutiny matter. If it's to do with officers not following process when they should, then that could be an audit matter. You know, so we want this to be done properly, but I don't think any of us would dream of thinking that this thing is newspaper next week or fish paper next week, you know, and we can forget about it. It can't be. These are serious allegations, and they've either got to be proved or disproved. So I mean, this isn't, it's not nice, is it? And we don't like to be criticised as a council. We don't like our officers to be criticised, especially when the allegations are so bad. Yeah. Are there any more people want to speak, Natasha?
Yes, you've got Councillor Douglas and Councillor Bindloss, and then you've got Councillor Evans and Councillor Brown.
A minute. So you've got Jeannie to start with. I think I've got Jeannie, Rob, Chris, Evans, and who was the last one? Brown. Was it?
Councillor Brown, correct.
Yeah, thank you. So, Jeannie.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm really pleased to see on the pending items, housing allocations and the application of process and procedure to get, obviously, for people to apply for social housing. I've had quite a few residents actually contact me over the last few months. There's a lot of concern out there, even some distress amongst them due to the COVID-19 bringing in issues relating to housing and a high need for social housing. And so I've had a lot of approaches. People have been given notice to vacate properties. Landlords are selling, they're moving back into their properties, and people are really on the move more than normal, I would say. On the website, it's unclear what residents can do. It does state on the website, on the Melton Borough Council website, that COVID is causing uncertainty and asks for understanding from residents. It also says that Melton Borough Council are reviewing its housing registration website, but at the moment, new applications before June of last year are on hold, and all active applications are on hold. And it's really confusing for residents to know what to do at the moment. And there's of course you can ring the council up, that's no problem, always been able to ring up the council, but anyway, I'll get to the point quickly now. When there's a date for this to be revised, I'm just asking that it be brought forward as soon as possible, because I think there's going to be a bit of a flood with the market. I think there's going to be a lot of movement down the line, and more as the economic uncertainties hitting people, more so as the pandemic lockdown lifts. It's just a big area of concern with my residents, and I just wanted to highlight that. So if we could bring that forwards, it would be really helpful to the residents of Melton Mowbray. Thank you.
Thank you, Junie. Did you want to say anything, Andrew, about that?
Yes, yeah, always good to get member feedback on the website. It's something that's in the process of being updated. Just to sort of reassure members that in terms of residents of the borough that are homeless or threatened with homelessness, then the closure of the waiting list has no impact on that. So we're still taking homeless applications and supporting assisting residents that are threatened with homelessness on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you very much. And Jeannie, are you saying you don't think it's clear enough?
It's well, when you go on the website, it just says ask for understanding from residents and the public, because at the moment COVID-19 is causing uncertainty. So it is confusing. It's saying that New applications before June 20 are on hold. All active applications are on hold. There's no clarity as regards what people should do if they want to apply for social housing. It does say that choice-based lettings is the website, and you may be able to find properties on there, but it also says that not all properties are advertised on that website as well. So yeah, I have had residents contact me. They just don't know what to do. They've
Okay,
got
thanks for that. Yeah, thanks for that, Jeannie.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I suggest then, Andrew, somebody look at the stuff on the website to make sure it's clear for people?
Absolutely. I think it may be helpful, Chair, for us to get something around all members just to explain the different routes into rehousing at present.
Yeah.
So happy to commit to that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you, Jeannie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you.
Yeah, Rob Bindloss.
Thank you, Chair. I just really wanted to thank Councillor Evans for bringing this extremely comprehensive, well put together, constructed request. And just really to say to all members that this is something, as Pat has already said, and there's been an awful lot said today, that this is something that we will take very, very seriously and we will consider very seriously. You have my word on that. And I hope this is something that we can do very quickly. That's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Chris Evans.
Thank you, and thank you, Rob, for those kind words. I suppose my question will be really, obviously, getting any kind of real evidence at the point in time will involve getting officers, but you'll only get. My concern to the chair and vice chair is, for obvious reasons, you'll only get one side of the story from here. And obviously, the only way we can get the other side of the story, which is alleged or whatever, is to actually have a task and finish group, because that will then take, as Natasha has pointed out to me, that will give us a chance to interview and get real facts from the other side. I nearly said of the fence. Well, it feels like it at the moment. Feels like the other side of the fence. And I suppose my question to you, Chair, is at what timescale do you think this committee will hear whether this inquiry or task and finish group will be established? How long will it take to make that decision? And I'm not asking for a date. I'm asking for a sort of reasonable timescale.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chris. It's how long is a piece of string? We just don't know. But certainly, it's probably one of the first things we'll establish is how long is it likely to know. But we'll be looking not just at our office, but we'll try and get some idea of the truth, an indication of the truth, and I hope that won't be too long. But we won't be doing the job of a task and finish. We won't be doing a full review or anything like it. We'll just be looking at the basics. As say, there are allegations there which might or might not be true, and we've got, as ever, keep an open mind. Councillor Brown.
Just going to revisit is that I just want to be absolutely clear. What we're talking about here is that the allegation is that we somehow fettered or got involved in a land transaction about non-highways land. That's quite clear. Yeah. So they're not talking about the highway.
No, and as I say, before we ever start, we'll want to have comment.
I'm quite clear where we are, because I've read the documentation, but I'll go back to my original question, which Joe said I would get an answer tonight. Can I ask again that we are 100% sure that there's going to be no legal comeback to us from the County Council? And Joe said I would get an answer tonight. Can I ask that of the officers, please?
Well, Joe was going to respond. I hope he will. It's something which we need to know.
Sorry, Chair, but I spoke to Councillor Orson yesterday, and Councillor Orson said the officers would give me an answer tonight.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
I think Pranali's indicating that she wants to come in.
Is the way you dodge about. Yes, please, Pranali.
So what I can say is that in our knowledge, and I can't comment on my own incompetency as it has been alleged, or my team's, but what we have done is followed our policy, followed the right procedures in our understanding, and followed the RICS methodology in terms of understanding the value of the land. We have done everything that we think is in the right frame of mind, with the right policies and procedures framework in place. And we are more than happy and open to any scrutiny or any suggestion of any investigation, because all the information has been provided as part of the cabinet report. There has been more detailed confirmation and clarification provided through the leader to all members through the detailed briefing note. And bearing in mind that what cabinet has approved or agreed is just heads of terms, it is not approved the actual sale of the land, which is yet to come following further legal work and negotiations. And between now and at that point in time, if there is further information available, of course, that will need to be considered. But another extra thing is that in line with our disposal policy, we are yet to commission an independent evaluation of the land as well. So that will be another piece of information that will inform the detailed contract before the sale for the land. So there are still steps to follow. Only thing that is agreed is just the heads of terms at this point in time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pranali.
Councillor Cumbers, we have Councillor Holmes as well now with her hand raised. I just wanted to bring to your attention, I know it's an important debate, but you had an indicative time limit of 20 minutes and we are at half an hour on this item, just to let you know.
Oh yes, thank you. Right, so we'll make this the last comment then, please, Elaine.
Yeah, I don't want to, I just want to ask Pranali, just because I spoke to the county, the chief exec of the county, I can't quite understand, and never been able to understand when this came up, that you are not talking all together. This is what I can't quite understand, that you're not talking, or are you talking to the county as well? You know, it's not just MBC, it's LCC, isn't it? That's all.
Absolutely right, Elaine. And why wouldn't we talk to county? Because there is obviously highways and transport implication through the planning application process. And as I mentioned earlier, that in the cabinet report at 3 points, we have talked about a tripartite agreement. So yes, the county council is aware that there is our land, there is their land, and there is highways discussion to take place. So there is, yes, there are two sides of county council land in the mix. There is highways land as well as property land. Yes, we have talked about them in terms of the commercial negotiation of our own land, as you wouldn't, if you are selling your own house, you wouldn't talk to your neighbor or you wouldn't ask their opinion, that there is a different mix here. So commercial negotiations, yes, we have done it on our own, but in full understanding and information of the other organization that this is taking place.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was helpful. Thank you. So we'll draw that to a discussion. This isn't the last time that
Councillor Cumbers, Councillor Evans has his hand raised.
Oh yes, Councillor Evans, please.
I'm sorry, I've got my head in my hands at the moment because I can't believe what I just heard. We've agreed the heads of terms, which is basically how much we're likely to sell it for, yet we haven't had an independent valuation, and the county council are reckoning it could be worth up to £1 million in an independent evaluation. And you have already started negotiations and agreed heads of terms before you've had an independent evaluation, which could make, let's be blunt about it, could make the development unmanageable. If county council also want £1 million, then I don't understand why this came to cabinet at this stage, because as far as I can see, the contract that you've got is nothing. You're going to sell the land almost for free. All you're going to get is 150k for highways improvement.
Yeah, excuse me, Chris, would you mind? We're getting now into the details.
I know, but it's just a Pranali. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, Chair, but the finale has put something to me that I am staggered by, because I was.
That's okay, and you can make your comments. Don't forget,
Yeah.
there'll be plenty of time for you to make comments, and for all of us to get to the bottom of it. I don't think it's going to do us any good digging down now into the detail. You know, we've all got concerns, especially you, and thank you again for bringing it to us. And we will get, if there is an issue, we'll get to the bottom of it. If there's not an issue, we'll get to the bottom of that as well. You know, but thank you for all your contributions, and I think we can move on. Right. Yeah, the community support hub, and Andrew Cotton, Director for Housing and Communities, will provide an introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cumbers. Just a few quick words from me to introduce the agenda item before I hand over to Aisha, and Laura, who will take members through the slides that have been included in the agenda pack. So when I joined Melton, coming up for a year ago now, the Community Support Hub was up and running. That was a big bonus for me, starting a new job. I could tell immediately that it was up, it was running, and it was effective. So that was, you know, a real bonus, and I can take no credit for it. So included in the slides is an introduction that gives a comment as well from one of the mentors that was working in the Community Support Hub. So that's on page 26 of the pack. And that's really been my impression throughout the time when I've got more involved with the Community Support Hub. What a great team spirit there is, the satisfaction that's come from colleagues working in the Community Support Hub, and the absolute value of the work that's gone on there. I think the only other comment I'd like to add, Councillor Cumbers, is just this really ties in, I think, excellently well with the task and finish work that Scrutiny is doing on COVID and the impact of the pandemic. And I hope that in particular some of the case studies will be very useful to members. So nothing further to add from me at this stage. And if now, Councillor Cumbers, through you, I hand over to Aisha. She'll take members through what I think will be a really interesting presentation.
Yeah. Welcome to Aisha. Very warm welcome. And can I ask members, nobody to interrupt Aisha. If you have questions, will you wait till the end, please? Yeah. Thank you, Aisha.
Thank you, Councillor Cumbers. So I believe members have a copy of the slides. So I just wanted to move from the introduction slide to the one with what looks like an organisational chart. It was quite a challenge.
Aisha, apologies for interrupting. I don't know if Councillor Cumbers and Aisha, would you like me to display the presentation for you as you go through?
Oh, that's like an excellent idea.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Is that okay with members? Yeah, if I do that, and then if you just tell me when to move on, Aisha.
Yes, thank you. That would be good. So if we move to the third slide, Natasha, that's okay. That one there, yeah. So for me, when I knew that I had to do this presentation, it was quite a challenge to capture all the elements that had to be considered and were linked to the development and running of the hub. So obviously what looks like an organisational chart, but I wanted to put it in this way because there were so many elements that had to be considered, and the relationships all kind of interlinked with them. The first side was the staff teams that had to be seconded, the roles and skill sets that we had to consider. The roles and skill sets were really, really important because we were working with an unknown. We didn't, at times we were working completely without national guidance, without county guidance. There were certain boundaries. We had to set certain boundaries, but also give enough flexibility for them to be able to respond as a people-centred basis, not a process-centred basis. The roles and skill sets were also important because staff had to be skilled enough to be able to triage people differentiate between clinical vulnerability and financial vulnerabilities, because the two are not always the same. And whilst the triage was important in relation to longer term considerations, we have to think about the future, that it sort of trying to respond straight away and respond to people's needs straight away. We also had to consider whether we were setting a precedent around creating a dependency culture. But that had to be balanced then, and your staff had to be given that coaching and that guidance around getting the balance right, because what we didn't want to do is make people jump through hoops in order to get support at what is going to be a very challenging and difficult time for everybody. And then just right at the end, I wanted to highlight staff welfare as well. These are staff, bearing in mind we were responding to a pandemic for our residents. I think I didn't want us to forget that these are staff, it had an impact on the staff as well. The pandemic has impacted all of us. The kind of work that they're doing and they were continuing to do through the community hub is generally work that needs to be delivered on a face-to-face basis, because it's very people focused, very people engaging. It's a role they need to deliver, looking at people's reactions, interactions, and there's an element of staff for them moving from where they were delivering that face-to-face basis and then having to go into an office-based, home-based role, because of the obviously the steer that people had to be working from home where they can in order to help in the national effort of reducing the risk of passing on the virus. And I think I just wanted to say right at the end on that bit as well, there's an element of guilt that whilst we were feeling with our own mental health and the staff were feeling that and they had to adjust, there's also that element that actually they're dealing with people. We're kind of in a job, at the very least we're in a job and we're delivering, and there are people, you see their conditions and the fear that they have about their future, about people that have been in a job and the job's at risk. So there's a sort of guilt element as well, and all of that would have had a mental health impact on the staff. So you have to consider the staff welfare as well as the residents' welfare. The teams, in terms of where those staff were taken from, we had majority were from Laura's case management team, as they were already delivering a case management based service where they have to use those skills. The housing team, where they have the housing officers, environmental health as well. So there was a lot of transferable skill sets that we looked at, and then in order to allocate people roles as well, and also considering things like GDPR, where we could remove barriers in order to enable them to not be constrained by processes, so they can react quickly and to a certain extent, without guidance, be able to use their judgment on what's right for people. The second thing is considering what our offer is, and our offer quite simply was to support residents impacted by COVID-19. The coordination of that offer, there's no way we could have delivered any of that by ourselves. It was coordinated through existing community groups, and we basically filled in any gaps as necessary. The three main elements of the support that we delivered was mostly food, prescriptions and social isolation, which in turn impacted on mental health. Further down the line, obviously the food is also linked to debt issues for people as well. Sometimes food wasn't always food. The need might have been fuel, but people spent what they would normally spend on food on fuel, for example, and therefore they didn't have enough money for food. So just kind of not being able, having to base it just on how many food bags we delivered is not necessarily indicative of that's where the need was. And then there was obviously the linking in with other council services, because as people were coming to us, we could then look at what other issues that they might have around homelessness, if they're facing evictions, the sheltered housing schemes that we have, antisocial behaviour, increase in mental health, all of the issues and frustrations people were feeling can then manifest itself into other issues, and that's something that they needed to pass on to more skilled and specialist teams. I mentioned earlier that there is no way we could have delivered our offer ourselves. So relationships plays a big part. It did play a big part. It still plays a big part. We've built quite, through this, we've built quite either strengthened or built very good relationships with community groups all across the borough, with parish councils. Facebook groups were popping up, and then there was the county council effort as well that we had to link into. On the Facebook groups, I mean, it was a huge effort. It was quite empowering. It was quite emotional for me personally, actually seeing people just coming forward and trying to do things themselves and supporting the effort as a community. But alongside that, we as a local authority have a duty of care as well. So you have to consider, whilst you don't want to dampen that spirit, that motivation, that commitment, that community spirit people were showing, we also had to consider where we needed to take safeguarding precautions and make sure that our vulnerable people were not being taken advantage of as a result by a few. There was also obviously funding opportunities that came up. Although we didn't get huge amounts of funding in the first instance ourselves, we did have the county council based funding, community grants, and we did support quite a number of our community groups in accessing that funding. Safeguarding that I'd already mentioned. When you work with so many community groups and partner organisations in delivering the effort as well, it's only as good as the messages that you deliver with them. So we had to make sure that we were delivering a consistent message, that the work was joined up, that we were looking at the issue of food bags and delivery of prescriptions in the same way that they were looking at. So all of those conversations had to take place. Then there was the data, huge amounts of data. And yeah, I don't think we could really realistically capture every single thing that came through. There was data requests from a national level, from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, from a county level, for our own internal purposes, because we knew that we wanted to look at the trends and although we were reactive in the development of the community hub, we wanted to be proactive going forward. So there was a lot of data we felt that we could use going forward as well. Some of the core partners that we worked with, the Melton Learning Hub, the Storehouse, in terms of food bank and Access All Areas, all of those partners as well. Some of them were also coached around delivering differently. The Storehouse had, for example, a lot of people that also fell into the clinical extremely vulnerable category. So there wasn't a part where we played a more operational part in the delivery of and coordination of food banks as well. And then there was the communications. So right from the onset, in being proactive with our communications to residents, internal communications, external communications, through social media. Our Here for Melton hashtag was set up. We, as I mentioned, we sent a proactive communication to all the residents. And whilst Leicestershire County Council took charge of the first priority, which was the extremely vulnerable, anybody at risk of sort of adult social care that fell over their threshold, we took a lot of the priority 4 calls as well. And then there was, I mentioned earlier about the Facebook groups and the social media groups that were popping up. We were very conscious that there was quite a lot of unregulated groups going on there. There might have been misinformation around funding, so there needed to be that element that was being managed. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about much later on is the development of a new wave of community groups who have actually developed through this community hub, and they're actually holding their own in terms of being an established, recognised provider, and we are going to be working with them going forward. Next slide, Natasha. Oh, I think you've gone, that's the one. Yeah. So this The data, Laura's going to cover the data in a bit more detail. What I do want to say, and I did cover it a little bit earlier, is that the numbers on the chart are not reflective of the actual levels of support given. Because this was a coordination effort, we didn't deliver everything directly, although some were directly supported, others were signposted as we developed our own knowledge of the most appropriate sources of help that were based on the person's circumstances and location. And when I say sort of direct and indirect, we could have, for example, we equipped our community groups with the tools to understand where support was going to be given, how to access, for example, the NHS responders, the volunteer access. So we would do that initial bit, but then the community hub, the community groups would then follow through, and they would tell their sort of the people that they're supporting where to get that help. So that coordination of the community effort, that's why I suppose you'll see in the middle that the numbers on there were unknown. Laura, did you want to come in a little bit more detail around the food bags and the other things?
Yes, thanks, Aisha. We have, as Aisha said, direct requests to date, 987. The requests are in green. So 47 referred to for wellbeing calls where social isolation was the only factor. That was coordinated by our sports and health team with support by myself as part of the community hub. And utilising community groups and partners offering befriending services and making onward referrals to mental health partners and case management team for complex support. In excess of 3,000 food bags, 600 plus referrals for food bag for 600 plus referrals pre-handover. So that's 600 plus referrals for food bags from contacts made into the community hub for support with food, and that was our financial vulnerability. So from those 600 plus referrals, 3,000 food bags have been collected and or delivered. Pre-handover, because initially the food bags, the food bank for the community hub was delivered by Melton Borough Council. We sourced a venue, which was the venue in Phoenix House on the ground floor from Melton Learning Hub, because they had a large area there, they had a kitchen, they had fridges and freezers for us to store the food. We were also supported in terms of they lended out their volunteers from Voluntary Action Melton. And they were receiving, Melton Learning Hub receiving food from FareShare already, and that was directed into Phoenix House, into the venue for our food bank. And as I said, we delivered that as Melton Borough Council. As things progressed, we actually handed that over to Melton Learning Hub, still providing that support and still collating the data. And then from then, that was actually handed back to the storehouse and is being delivered now by the storehouse. Initially, the storehouse couldn't deliver it because they didn't have enough volunteers. A lot of their volunteers were older and some of them were clinically extremely vulnerable. So they gave a lot of their food into Melton Learning Hub and to ourselves to be delivered. But as I said, that has now moved into the storehouse. We don't have the data in terms of how many, it's in excess of 3,000 deliveries because we don't have specific data from storehouse because it's too difficult to collate it. But we know that there are 600 plus referrals because obviously we make those referrals in. Prescriptions, so in excess of 212 assisted with prescriptions. So initially, the community hub assisted with prescriptions, contacting the pharmacy and using our volunteers to collect and deliver. We were then able to refer into the NHS Good Sam. So that the Good Sam, the nearest volunteer in the area is matched the referral, and that they contact the referral directly to arrange collection, delivery and payment. We get feedback in terms of the community about the success of using that service, but we don't get feedback from Good Sam, unfortunately, because again, it's part of the NHS, and it's so we don't have. We believe that the actual figures will be a lot higher than are on this chart. So other requests, other support that we provided, so online shopping. So we've provided support around digital support in terms of people being able to get their supermarket slots, etc. Fuel, so that's your gas and electricity, fuels that are used. Budgeting support, case management support. So where the team identify that someone who's come through the community hub is in need of more complex support, that is referred directly into case management, who will pick it up. And then secondary triage, addressing ongoing dependency. I think Aisha covered this previously. So we provide a triage at the beginning of seeing someone, but also we follow that up with a secondary triage to see if their circumstances have changed, so that they don't become dependent on the support that we're providing. And sometimes it does change and actually they're more independent. And if not, we continue that support. And making onward referrals into social care and liaising directly with them. So coordinating massive community effort in grey there. The community hub has now been absorbed by the case management team, and the case management team, part of me and my learning at Phoenix House, had that infrastructure in terms of our partners and working with partners and other funding sources. So the team used funding sources such as energy charities, Severn Trent. Schulers have a charity which is the Henry Storer Trust, which we can support people with gas and electricity and food if we need to. The COVID Winter Grant. So actually what that means is, because we already had that infrastructure, because we're working that close with our partners, we're not reliant on other sources of funding, on waiting for that funding. Partner and community groups already known to us or registered through the Here for Melton. So we did a lot of work contacting community groups, ones we were already aware of and ones that we were already working with, but ones that contacted the Here for Melton inbox directly, and we offered them support. We also needed to understand what their support was and what the offer was, and add this to our online hub initially. And we also provided, as Aisha spoke about, funding information, so the Leicestershire County Council's community funds and other grants that they may have been eligible for. A lot of these community groups were actually existed just because of a reaction to COVID-19, so they didn't know how to complete those kind of funding applications. So we did a lot of support with those groups to make sure they got the funding, and a lot of them did, which was really good. Volunteer resources and management of that resource, so including prescriptions, which I previously spoke about. Initially, we supported with prescriptions, shopping, dog walking, and this was coordinated by the community hub. But as I said, that prescription support was then provided by Good Sam. We handed a lot of our volunteers over to Voluntary Action Leicestershire, who was coordinating that and managed that support within Melton.
Just before we move on to the next slide, I just did want to say about the partner in the community groups and what Laura mentioned about supporting with funding. One of the things that we found is a lot of the groups that came up, although we were satisfied in relation to what they were delivering and how they were delivering, and that they were considering safeguarding, and we were supporting them in that way, they couldn't access the funding that the funding that Leicestershire County Council Communities grant, because they didn't meet the criteria. And in those, what we didn't want to do is sort of really forget them, or not. It's not a reward, but there was that recognition that they weren't getting in terms of the support they were provided. So what we worked with the Melton Learning Hub on one example, where they actually became the sort of guardian of that funding, but they allocated that funding to the community group that was running it. So it wasn't just limited to the ones that generally always get the funding anyway, because they've got the sort of established community group. So where possible, we did try and use that facility as well. Next slide, Natasha. So just a few key achievements for us that was highlighted here, really. We established our community hub on the 18th of March. We were amongst the first nationally to establish the community hub. We deployed 90% of the borough's volunteers that had registered with us. That was the highest in the county prior to handing the volunteer coordination over to Voluntary Action Leicester. We were recognised as one of the top 5 areas in the country for a proportion of NHS volunteers deployed. What we found proportionately is, although the COVID-19 impacted us just as much as the other areas, what we did was use the resources that we have available to us externally quite well, so that it didn't actually burden the sort of the council more than it needed to. So in terms of trying to facilitate and coordinate external resources in order to offer support. The community hub was cited by the LGA as the best practice for community hubs as well, and it did feature on BBC East Midlands Today. We worked with the local fire service. This is actually Jodie's housing team that worked with the local fire service to deliver wraparound support to vulnerable tenants that were identified through the hub. And that was in relation to mental health and fire safety concerns, where the fire service actually undertook their own triage, and we supported them with that. That was also cited and shared as good practice both nationally and county-wide. Laura mentioned working with the storehouse in ways that we hadn't worked with them before. Before, we just used to refer people on. But actually, and I talked earlier about the consistency in the messages that we were giving to the organisation. Pre-lockdown, there were a number of residents that were on the food bank's regulars list. That regulars list was 146. Currently, that list stands at 78, as far as we know, and that's as a result of, as the lockdown, as we continued, we started talking to the storehouse about the triage work that we were doing, and we offered to work with them in supporting them in trying to bring that list down and challenging people around whether actually the food bank was actually becoming a way of life for them rather than a necessity, and was there anything else that they needed support with, and how we could support them with that. So that's quite a good achievement really for us in terms of addressing long-term dependency. Next slide, Natasha. So this is a blank because we did send out a few case studies that were collated and presented. We sent that separately to members. Some of these are representative of residents that we would not normally have interacted with pre-COVID unless they were referred for specific vulnerabilities. What we found with the pandemic is it brought to our attention and on our radar a new cohort of vulnerabilities, especially those who ordinarily pre-pandemic, they're able to manage their day-to-day lives and the challenges that they faced in their lives. Whilst the case studies are not for discussion in the public domain, obviously what we didn't want to do is during the discussions, there is a potential of giving away identifying factors of the individuals. We would be happy at the end to take any general questions around the case studies that are in there, or sort of the typical nature of some of that support that we were offering. Next slide. So where we are 10 months on, the Community Support Hub now is incorporated into the work of the case management team, which is also known as Me and My Learning, in order to manage the fluctuating demand as we sort of go into different elements of lockdown, tier 2, tier 3, the demand was also fluctuating. So that team is ideally placed to identify and address other issues as we go along as well. We believe we did harness the community effort quite successfully. We're starting to see the development of additional groups within our wider partnership and support structure. We strengthened existing relationships, especially with Melton Learning Hub and the Storehouse. I've got in there Unlock Your You. That's an organisation that we came by. Actually, that organisation came to our attention as a result of members' concerns about the governance behind that organisation, because they seem to be offering mental health support. So we, rather than approaching them with accusations, what we offered to do was actually talk to them to see how we can support their organisation, and at the same time we can then be assured of the services that we were developing. Actually they've become quite a key partner in sort of recovery, COVID recovery, and working with a cohort of people that needs mental health support, especially those people who actually need that second level of mental health support. But the waiting list for that complex level of mental health support is sort of 13 to 26 weeks, and we're working with them in order to be able to support them to bridge that gap. So that's quite a really good positive success story. The Community Support Hub and here for Melton, we think that there's sort of a brand association now with that, and we think that there's potential for us to take and look into how we can take that forward for the future. And we're finding that community spirit, there's quite a lot of organisations we hear through our other meetings that are sort of, you hear about volunteer fatigue and apathy. Actually, it's working the other way for us. And Laura, I don't know if you want to talk about the Toys for Christmas.
Yeah, even though the community hub's been absorbed by case management, and case management has its business as usual in terms of supporting complex cases, we're also still very much involved with ongoing community support. So just before Christmas, a few months before Christmas, a local business contacted us because during COVID, people within the area had been taking toys for children and delivering them to the business, and they didn't have enough space and they didn't have the means to deliver them. So what we did was we contacted that business, and the team went out to collect all the toys, socially distanced, obviously cleaned all the toys with full PPE, brought them back to Phoenix House, and we stored those toys. And then we put together a system whereby we took referrals for families who were in financial hardship, mostly because of COVID, to be honest, but some just because of their financial hardship. And we took those referrals and we bagged up toys for various different ages. We had different toys, different ages, books, all sorts of things. And the team bagged them up, and families came to collect them from Phoenix House, and they actually supported over 50 different children. And some of those children have never had Christmas toys, and some of them wouldn't have had them this year had we not provided that support. And that's that the team will continue to do.
Yeah, and also districts have come together as one voice as well, to provide a sort of consistent, strong and united approach to county as well. We are currently supporting the vaccination effort, although it does lie with the CCG and Voluntary Action Leicester. And although we're not supporting it sort of at quite a detailed level, we just feel that it is important because our residents, I think the success of the vaccinations, success or failure or issues within the vaccination, our residents, I don't think care really whether who's delivering it, whether it's the CCG or whether it's Voluntary Action Leicester or whether it's us. We feel it's sort of good community engagement and spirit for us to be visible out there in the community and supporting that effort as well. Thank you, Natasha. Next slide, Natasha.
Oh, there's not another one, it can't be.
That's the final one. It's just ready for questions now.
Well, can I first say thank you? My goodness me, that's something for us all to be so proud of. You know, it really is. I mean, there's always been a nice community here, and this just shows not only that, it's improving. You know, right through COVID, the community spirit and the helping each other, and it's certainly something that we can be very proud of. And I think Aisha and Laura especially, you know, the work they've done, the way they've organised it. We're going to have questions, don't worry. But I just thought I must say a few words first. I'm really, really impressed. And thank you. So now we'll go to questions. Any hands? Oh, we've got several hands up. I can see. Oh, yes, Rob Bindlos, because Rob, of course, has been part of it as well.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, but disregarding that, to be totally honest. Thank you, Aisha and Laura. I think you should be really, really proud of what you've done. You know, this is, as Pat's just said, this is a fantastic resource. It's helped so many people. And yes, I know that personally from going around and delivering bits and pieces. The work that you've done has been absolutely exceptional. And you can tell from the way you were talking tonight that you've got a very, very, very good understanding of the needs of the people, and you've worked so well with them. But not just that, though, is it? Because you've actually networked and worked very hard with the all the other agencies. You've got an understanding of how they work and how you can work with them. So I think you've done an exceptional job. I would ask just one thing, though. Do you see any new challenges that will be facing you over the next few months?
I think the two biggest challenges for me would be the sort of mental health impact and the financial impact. The mental health, definitely, I consider myself as quite a strong sort of personality, and I'm starting to feel the impact of sort of this lockdown and this different way of working. So I can't even imagine how it must be for the people that are fearing the sort of loss of their jobs and the way that they're working. So that definitely is probably going to be on the radar. This and also like the jobs. I mean, we're working in, you wouldn't think, big brand names like Burton and Topshop and all of these brand names going under. It's not something that you could ever consider, and those all have a people-based impact. So yeah, I guess transferable skills, considering transferable skills, yeah, and that's all related to finance. Thanks,
and it will be great to hear how it progresses in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thank you, Aisha. Yeah, Chris Fisher and then Elaine, please.
Yeah, firstly, I'd like to say thank you for this evening's presentation, and to both Laura and Aisha for all the data that you provided me last Friday in such a short space of time. It's really comprehensive and it seems to be really useful. I've just got a couple of questions about Unlock Your You. Obviously, it's like a new organisation which seems to have appeared on social media. I just wondered, you know, are they like approved by NHS or the clinical commissioning group? And are they a professional recognised body? I don't know very much about them. I've just seen them around on social media and just wanted to check that they are quite a genuine company.
Yeah, so our concerns, initially we had those concerns, questions asked through members of the public and a couple of the members, and that was kind of like our opportunity to request a meeting with them to discuss it, but it had to be done quite carefully, because actually as a council we don't have any authority to be asking those questions. So we did go along the lines of, we've got a duty of care to our residents, and as a result of that we have been able to, they've been quite open, they've been transparent, we're assured of their safeguarding measures, the safeguarding policies in place, and that they have the relevant governing documents. And actually quite recently they've also been successful in getting some CCG funding as well to deliver their services.
So would somebody, like if somebody went to Latham House with any kind of issues, would they be referred to Unlock Your You? Do you know?
It depends. They're quite a new organisation. They need to be obviously knocking on Latham House's door. I guess Latham House at the moment, they're busy with the vaccination effort, and if they needed support from us to facilitate that, we can do that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah. Elaine.
Oh, that's it. Yes, I think you are doing and have done some wonderful work. I know that you have heard about various places being closed and where you might be going and all that sort of thing. I don't think you need worry about it. Need they, Pariah? Because as you said, all these various things won't happen probably for at least 10 years. So just wanted to tell you that you needn't worry, that nothing is going to happen, as far as Pranali said, at Phoenix House. So, you know, you are safe. And in times like this, when of course mental health is very, very important. I have a friend who has, well, she's not very well and she forgets quite a lot. And she can't quite understand why we don't go and visit her. And that in itself is difficult, but for people that can't get out, they can't go anywhere, they're trying to teach children, but with help like you're giving, I think is excellent. And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
No more questions, are there? No. I am so impressed, and yes, as with Chris, we've had other information and data and stats before to help us with our scrutiny stuff, and it is all so impressive. You know, it really is, and goodness knows how some of these people would have survived, you know, without the help that you've been able to organise, and the volunteers have come together as well, you know. But I find something shocking, and to think that there are families who've never had Christmas presents, you know, and this is the sort of thing which comes out, doesn't it, at a time like this, you know, just as it wasn't so long ago, we realised there are loads and loads of children and young people who've got no IT equipment. You know, how can they, in this day and age, how can they get by? But I think, I think the work you've done and the work and the things you've started as well, I think you've really done us proud. Yeah. Well done to you. Congratulations to all of you as well, because there are other people involved as well. Yes, thank you very much. And for the lovely presentation. Thank you. And you'll be hearing from us. You'll be, more questions will be flying your way. I'm sure they will be. Anyway, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chair.
So shall we move on then? Number 6 is housing strategy. And that, of course, is Pranali will, Pranali will start this off. Thank you. And I think you're going to explain, Pranali, about why we're not seeing Lee. Thank you.
Yes, so I would start with 2 apologies. One from Councillor Lee Higgins, who, well, for personal commitment, he's not able to be here today and not able to present the report. But also another apology is from the report author, Nick Butcher, who has written the strategy and done all the work on it so far. But again, due to personal circumstances, she couldn't be here to present the report, so I'm doing it on her behalf. The main thing about the housing strategy is that it is, while it is not a statutory requirement, it is it does provide an overarching policy and strategic framework for planning, developing, and managing housing within the borough over a long period of time. It does set out key principles and objectives. So it's a very overarching strategic document. And as I say, it's a framework document. So it will influence other policies and strategies, not just by the council itself, but also by the partners within the area. The document, of course, relates to council's key priorities of providing quality council homes and landlord services, but also delivering sustainable and inclusive growth in Melton. But there is an underlying ambition that kind of works along all the areas of housing development and delivery. Is council's ambition to achieve the net zero target by 2030 through climate emergency. So that has influenced the work so far. We did a not consultation, we did a presentation to all members back in October, just a few months ago, in presenting the priorities and objectives for the strategy at that time. And we received quite positive feedback on the night, but also afterwards, few councillors came back with some real good positive comments. So we have taken those comments on board and went ahead in terms of start putting some details on the document since then. The key objectives that it includes is talking about delivering growth. So how we can deliver sustainable and inclusive growth that meets the needs of all our residents, current and future as well. Second objective is about better homes. So that talks about the quality, the tenure, the typology, and how it suits the need of our residents within our area. The third element of the objectives is about supporting people, because the housing is as good as the people who need it and want it and live in it. Housing has a purpose for those people, but also those people manage and shape the housing and the demand for it for future. So people are a very important aspect for this. And last but not the least, as I said, it's an underlying theme of the climate emergency. Housing has a key role to play in how we plan, where we plan, and how we design and how we use our homes going forward. It has an impact on our climate and our environment. So that's what the housing strategy, the key themes are based on. One thing I wanted to highlight is that it is very much a working draft and it is even pre-consultation stage. So this is not a draft for public consultation just yet. We are still working on it. We are consulting with our internal teams, with yourselves, with the portfolio holders, as well as our stakeholders. So that process isn't completed yet. We are coming to the scrutiny committee at a very, very early stage of this document. So all comments are welcome, and we are open to any suggestions that councillors may have on this document. The purpose for today's session is to take all the comments, all the suggestions that you may have, take it back, discuss with the team and the portfolio holder, and prepare a draft document that is ready for consultation and get further comments from the wider communities, including our stakeholders, partners, and residents. So that's the purpose. There are timescales we have mentioned here, but they are very indicative. Nothing is set in stone. And again, there is no particular deadline we are chasing. So the purpose is to make the document as meaningful and as usable as possible, as accessible as possible, and do the right thing. So here I am to take all the comments and suggestions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got Jacob, then Ronan, then Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I just have a question with regards to the climate emergency under Section 4. And given that the government is going to be, well, it's banning petrol and diesel cars from 2030, and that's only 9 years away. I know this strategy is only for the next 4 years. But what is the council going to be pushing developers to start installing charging points at housing developments and at housing and individual plots? And will the council be doing the same with its own projects that it's leading?
Well, again, it is up to you, councillors, to decide and give a steer on that. In terms of pushing developers, it's not part of a local plan policy set out. So we can't make developers do it, but we can definitely positively encourage developers to do certain things. And yes, I think certain things will be market-led as well. And we know that electrical cars are taking over, and going forward, it won't be an option. important, but to provide electrical charging points in the car parks. From council's point of view, yes, we are working with other councils within Leicestershire, our neighbouring authorities, to explore funding opportunities for installing electric charging points in our car park. So that work is already underway, but there will be more details to talk about at the climate emergency group as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jacob. Ronan.
Cheers. Thanks, Penali, for the presentation, etc. Yeah, I think this is a good step forward. It's good to have a strategy written down, and obviously a key area, which is ensuring that we deliver houses for people who live in a borough, and also houses that also raise aspirations, etc. I have a couple. I want to go through a number of things. That's okay, Penali. Maybe you could write them down, and we can. There's just a couple of questions, and etc. I think looking at having read the strategy, etc. It's good. It lays it out clear, and it's quite to the point as to what they're trying to achieve. Yeah, and it's just about in those action points in those boxes. It's just really with yourselves as a team, really, having that reflection to make sure that we can deliver this. The ambition's great, but I'd rather try and do what we can do well rather than doing too much not so well, if you know what I mean. So and I'd certainly, if you felt that there's certain things that couldn't be delivered, I'd certainly back you up to say let's do the important things well rather than try and do everything. That's the first comment. Second comment, following on from Councillor Wilkinson, which is a very valid point, is that I'd like to ask a question on is there any way we can review the local plan in relation to new build housing, for example, around solar panels, air source heating, stuff like that there. And the reason I say that is we've had a recent conversation, one of my parish councils with Bloor Homes down at Brooksby, and they were basically looking at putting carrot gas tanks. But when we had the conversation, etc., and everything came in, they've decided to put air source in, which again hits a number of targets. But I know around the country, working with Oxfordshire, etc., they're starting to move their plans towards actually stipulating that this energy efficiency should go in. And at the end of the day, most of us buying houses, etc., who can afford it, we're going to pay for that, and people will happily pay, 10, 20,000 if it's then going to save money over the lifetime. It's a sort of an investment, etc. And it's the social conscience of us all, and ethically doing the right thing for the planet. So that's the first question I have. The other point is leading on to that is, I think it's quite remarkable the fuel poverty that we actually have in a borough that's seen as pretty affluent. And if we look at the rural areas, and I represent a rural ward that would be seen as very affluent, but I know within that ward there's pockets of people on low incomes or pensioners, especially with basically probably just a state pension, and they probably struggle from, especially in the winter months, to actually afford. But 12.7% of our rural population is in fuel poverty. And I think that certainly should be a focus, and I think we should be working with partner agencies. It's not just about Malvern Borough Council, to try and get as much money into the borough to keep people warm. And we know if you keep warm, Maslow's hierarchy of need, food, heat, housing, it's going to make sure that people are fitter, healthier, etc., which is really, really important. The other thing that we're going on to is around the supply of new housing, and it's quite clear, looking at the private rented sector, that is not going to deliver what we need in this borough. We have a low income workforce in a lot of the sectors, and I will keep banging on about it, and I'll keep doing it until we start doing stuff. And whether it be us build it, whether it be a housing association build it, I don't really care who builds it, as long as we're providing more social housing. And I know people say social housing aspiration, but if you don't have the income, people don't have the income, you can't just force them into the private rented sector or into buying houses if they don't have the income. We have to start somewhere and work a base through it, and maybe in times coming forward those properties can be sold, etc. But we're not talking 10 years here, we're talking 50 years, 100 years down the line. And I'd be interested to look at what our plan is for the town centre, etc. Fran, is the ability to build smaller flats for single people, etc. That's important. But also in the rural areas as well, what are we actually building? What can people actually afford, and what can they access? And social housing, we shouldn't be putting it into rural villages if people can't afford the services around them. If you live in my villages, you're going to have lots of money to go to the sports club, the cricket club, the village hall, the pub. It's not cheap really, etc. Looking at the rest of it is, we need to be very conscious, and that's all of us, all 28 members, that we don't just create Melton, or we don't turn Melton into just being a commuter town, a commuter borough. I know the Vale people drive out. I drive out myself to work, etc. Get the train to work. We need to really look at what really is Melton going to be. What's our offer going to be? What can our workforce really? What businesses can it support? Can it help expand, etc. And then that obviously relates into the income and the wages. And this isn't up to the Borough Council to deliver. This is for our partners, Brooksby, Melton, College, other colleges, Loughborough, etc. That can come in, the schools, etc. And the final point I'll make is that I think this strategy, like any other strategy that we're developing at the moment, we need to have a little bit of pragmatism, that it needs to be flexible enough to be able to react to change. We don't know what the outcome of, we don't know where COVID's going to really end up, what the economy is going to look like, what the fallout is, what pressure that's going to be put on us. And the other thing that is starting to affect people is the short-term and probably medium-term fallout of Brexit, and businesses that aren't at the moment able to export or can't export into Europe, and people are being laid off, etc. That might come back. Time will tell, but that is going to be in effect. Anyway, that's mine. I think it's a good document, and a good attempt to getting that draft out to us. So hopefully those comments are useful, Penally.
Thanks, Ronan. Yeah, I think there were lots of very nice comments, very useful information there, and there were some questions. Penally, did you get them all down?
I've noted all the points down. I think I would rather not give the answers just yet. Let us go back, do some more work on it, and come back before we go out for public consultation. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Elaine and then Jeannie.
Oh yeah. Yes, Penally. Yeah, quite a good document. But, and there is a big but, we seem to be putting affordable houses in rural areas. In rural areas where there are no jobs. We must put them in the places where, in the town, in the bigger villages. I know that my village actually is Category 1 village, ridiculous so it may seem. It isn't, but that's what it was. And there are no jobs, absolutely no jobs. And we have built these affordable houses, and at the moment there's only been one taken up out of 24, the last ones. I think we have to be very careful where we put these houses, because if they're affordable or they're rented houses, people probably have only got one car. They might never even have got a car. You've got to make sure that the people can get somewhere, that we've got a spasmodic bus service. So really, I would like you to take that back, Penally. And I know there have been talks about Bottisford. I don't know how many hundred, they're not there. There are too many in the villages. We have to have them in Melton or the very big villages. The very big villages have got, Bottisford has got more houses than anywhere else. Ashford, we maybe could do with a few more, but please think where people are going to be able to work. And I thought it was a very good point about 1-bedroom flats, 2-bedroom flats in the middle of Melton. This is what we're on, a task group to try and regenerate Melton. This is what we're going to try and do. And we could make it something pretty special if we went back to a corner shop type of town, because this is what we're going to have to do. But to keep putting affordable houses or rented houses in areas where there are no jobs is ludicrous. And I would like you to take that back, please, Pranali. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you. Jeannie?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Yes, on page 41, it talks about promoting affordable housing and low-cost home ownership, all which I agree with, obviously. Good housing design and quality. Yes, we do want affordable housing and low-cost homes, especially with the rising number of single adults living alone, which I think is upwards of 54% at the moment. However, some of my residents have actually stopped me in the street and asked me to champion their cause a little. They've shown concern over the quality of materials and the quality of workmanship that goes into these homes. They've really asked me to push this to any opportunity. There are some wonderful developments that I've visited around and about the borough, especially when I was on planning. However, I'd like to see how they weather in 5 or 10 or 15 years' time. And I personally will be taking a great interest in these dwellings, such as the quality of bricks. You know, do they chip easily? How do they stand up to the frost? Do they shatter when faced with frost? Because this can happen. All materials, really. And when it comes to workmanship, I've had situations where people have moved into their beautiful new homes, and then within a couple of weeks, they're calling the plumber, the electrician, because things aren't fixed properly, they're not put in properly. And I'm just wondering how we can build this in. It's obviously once it's out of our hands, the planning's gone, and you know, the developers have got hold of these developments to get on with building them. You know, how can we ensure these, you know, good quality materials and good workmanship, so that people really are getting their money's worth and are down the line paying out more and more money, you know, unseen bills mounting up. Anyway, just a comment from a resident who keeps stopping me in the street. Thank you very much.
I think just one thing I would definitely recommend all councillors to do is to engage with the design SPD that is coming up. There is consultation planned, and yes, while housing strategy will definitely need to take this into account, but we also need to have those hooks and those drivers marked within the design SPD as well. So there is a planning framework that helps push that agenda as well. So yeah, I would definitely suggest we try that as well.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Pranali.
Thank you, Pranali. Yes, thank you.
Rob.
Thank you, Chair. I like the format of this document. I think it's very easy to access information. So from that point of view, I think it's fantastic. Just looking at the growing and aging population, actually, I'm delighted to see that there's going to be a 110% increase in the number of people aged over 80 by 2043, because I'll be in that bracket then as well. So I'm pleased about that. But in seriousness, when you look at this and you look at the increase of 53% of the people will be aged over 65 in 2043, it's going to make a huge demographic difference to this borough at every level we have, whether it's from income coming in, whether it's people working and whatever, everything and the amount of under occupancy in houses, it's going to be huge. And this is something that we can address now, 22 years or so before that act, or before that really starts to bite. And I think, you know, we need to look at some of the examples that are out there now, the towns, the boroughs that are already experiencing that. Places like Worthing, for example, a place I know quite well, where I know they have quite a lot of issues because of that. So we have the opportunity now to address that before we end up with issues. Thank you.
Thanks ever so much for that, Rob. Yeah, just thinking about Worthing. Of course, Worthing is quite a special place because it attracts so many older people. They've not been living there for a long time, have they? They've sort of
No,
yeah.
it's fairly affluent in some areas, and like
Yeah.
a lot of these places, it's got areas that are not. It's significantly different to Brighton, which is a lot of a very, very high population of young people there, not least of all because of university. But something like Worthing, all that south coast, Eastbourne, wherever, Bournemouth, they're all very, very similar from that point of view. But it does actually create significant problems, and it's something, as I say, that we need to look at while we've got the information in front of us now, and we've got a timeline there. I think it's something that we can't, just put under the covers and think, well, we'll look at it in a few years' time. It's something that we need to do now.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Everywhere you look, it's accepted. We've got an aging population right across the country. I'm still not quite sure whether we're doing enough, well, apart from anything else, helping people to stay in their homes, because if they can't, and it's worth the council really sort of planning to keep people in their homes, so that they can live comfortably, and they want to be by themselves, they want to be in their own homes, and that's at little cost to the taxpayer, but if we've got lots and lots of old people who need places like Gretton Court, that's a different picture. That's why we've got to work so hard, I think, to keep people in their own dwellings or help them to move to smaller dwellings and that sort of thing. But I love this document because it's overarching, isn't it? Includes stuff about everybody and everything. And of course, it's not just about new housing. It's about keeping the other housing up to scratch, and not just making new houses energy efficient, bringing up the old ones as well. So no, I'm really impressed. I think we're doing well. And of course, it is, as you said, early consultation. Come to us first, and I hope members will let Pranali and Andrew know their thoughts and ideas. And all we're doing here with this one, of course, is we're noting the strategy, and I think we've given quite a few comments, and a steer. So I hope that's worked out all right as well. So
can I just add something, Pat?
Indeed, please. Yeah.
I had my hand up. Sorry, you may have.
I beg your pardon, I didn't see you.
Yeah. We need to drive down these high energy costs, and I think we need to work with the partner agencies where we can to drive this down. I mean, we did a promotion last year or the year before to install cavity wall insulation, and there was a certain cap on that, and I think that was a good benefit for more energy efficiency homes. And it took into account the financial assistance. Many people got it for very little money outlay. But that's all I was going to say, Pat.
I think that's excellent, and I've sort of said similar to Andrew really, because sometimes we rightly give a lot of help to people who are really poor. And that's right. But there are people who aren't that poor, but they still need a bit of assistance. Sometimes, as much as anything, it's advice and information, but not everybody's dirt poor, but it helps us all if everybody's in an energy efficient dwelling.
That's all, Pat. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Ronan's got his hand up.
Yeah, sorry, just one more thing. But Bob's just made me think of something I meant to say earlier. Was there's two things. One is that the way COVID's changing us around the way we're going to live and work from home, and whether we like it or not, or whether and our local plans and our neighbourhood plans don't address this is office space. And I often get it in my ward where everybody's jumping up and down because the there's 3 beds and a 4th room, which looks like the size of a bedroom. I have one in my home, yeah. And if I hadn't have had it, it would have been much more difficult to work in during the current period. I think that's going to have to change, and that's probably going to have to feed into all the design and everything, Pranali, around that there as well. Also, we have to remember is that as you work from home, your costs go up. So your energy, your heating, stuff like that. You probably eat more and all that sort of stuff, believe it or not. And I think that those sorts of things need to be taken in. And then it has a knock-on effect of that we're working from home, we're maybe not exercising as much during the day, because when you go to work and stuff, and I know Jacob is in Leicester like myself, and we'll go to the train, get off the train, walk to the office, and you're getting your exercise. Whereas sometimes at home you're working the whole way through because it's so easy. And I just think that, as well as building the house strategy, it's about having the open space and near the parks, or access, or the paths to take you into the parks, or encourage you to do so. Anyway, I just wanted to make that. I don't want to labour the point, but I just feel it's important.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ronan. Yeah, I think that's true. Your house is just part of where you live, isn't it? Outside counts as well. So, yeah, I think there's been some good comments, good feedback, and there's no urgent business. And I can see Natasha, and I think that's pretty well timed, wasn't it, Natasha? It was well worked out with 5 minutes adrift. So
that's great, Councillor Cumbers.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks you all for attending. Elaine did have her hand up, but I can see she's disappeared. So yeah, thank you for all coming, for your contribution, and yeah, I think that was a useful meeting. And thank you, the officers, as well as members, and of course Natasha and her team in the background. So and we'll see you all soon. Yeah, and thanks a lot.